Welcome. Welcome to tonight's student election debate. My name is Brendan.
I'm Peter.
And we're joined by the four candidates from the four lists for the University Council. To my left, we have Puk van Herwerden, Amin Abid. To my right, Bas Otterwanger and Demi Jansen. Please.
To start off the election, we would like each candidate to introduce themselves within 60 seconds and introduce their program for the upcoming elections and the upcoming year in the University Council. Puk, take it away.
Hi, I'm Puk. I'm 19 years old. I'm a second-year European Law School student and current Vice Chair of the Faculty Council of Law, and I represent ListLex. ListLex's most important plans include the improvement of student representation by more accessibility and general student assemblies, far more room for extracurricular activities by improving UNI's cooperation in this field, a way out of the housing crisis with short and long-term solutions, emphasizing the UNI's community feeling by organizing interfaculty social events and creating social spaces, working towards a more sustainable UNI by decreasing our carbon footprint, improving interfaculty cooperation so that studying at multiple faculties won't result in conflicting schedules, and improving the student well-being by decreasing the study pressure within the programs. Better education by passionate representation. Vote ListLex.
Thank you, Puk. And next up is Amin.
Thank you. Dear students, dear staff, and everybody who's watching. I'm Amin Abid, 22 years old, studying biomedical sciences for three years at and this year's political officer of Novum. I'm also running as the number 2 candidate for the University Council list on the Novum list. Novum is the progressive party and is actively working on achieving consistent progress on all of our 4 pillars, which is namely education, sustainability, housing, and internationalism. Voting Novum for University Council means voting for temporary housing assistance for all new students, establishing a direct line of communication between the University Council and the City Council, revising all contracts to increase the minimum wage up to 14 euros per hour, free period products in all facilities, and increasing the funding for newly established student associations. Don't hope for change, vote for change. Vote Novum.
Thank you, Amin. Next up is list 3 Dope, Bas Otterwanger.
My name is Bas. I'm 23 years old and I'm second at Dope's list for the University Council. And as Dope, we are currently the biggest party representing the students in the University Council. And as Dope, we would like to focus on the biggest issues that students have to focus right now, such as the student well-being and the mental health has definitely decreased over the last few years, and we want to really point out that we need some help to improve that again. And besides that, we want to focus on the housing market, which is really in a crisis right now. And our big point is that we as DOPE are directly connected to ISO, which is a national institute which has direct connections to the national politics in the Netherlands. And for example, we think that the digital innovation right now really has to improve at So we are going to focus on that, and as last we want to focus on flex studying, which means that we want a system in which you can pay per course instead of per year, so we can decrease the pressure on students.
60 seconds are up. We can come back to everything you mentioned. And list 4 is Cannes and USM. Demi.
Yeah, thank you very much. Hi everyone, my name is Demi. I'm 19 years old and I'm a first year UCM student. I've been on the board of Cannes USM this year as an external, and now I'm running for the University Council. And our 5 main priorities are sustainability, student housing and study finance, social safety and student well-being, transparency and communication, and education for the future. Next to our council work, we engage students in a lot of projects. Think about the Sustainability Week, SOS Maastricht, the 56-hour rule, because we get things done together. Thank you.
Thank you, Demi. So tonight's debate, we've already heard a lot of interesting proposals by the candidates, and we will pick up on mainly 3 topics in tonight's debate along 3 main sections. The first section will be dedicated to student representation and participation. The second section will be dedicated to education and curriculum. And in our last main section, we have the housing question. And after these three main questions, we will ask the candidates the question that you put in the YouTube chat throughout the whole debate, or also live at the end of the debate. So take it away, ask your questions in the chat anytime. So let's jump into the first main section on student representation and participation. For this, our team went around the university campus, collected voices from different students, how much they know, how much they are engaged in student politics. And we have a short video prepared, and we'll watch that now.
Is Liz actually?
No, I mean, no, not really, to be honest. But
Is it like the Universalis, like that, or no?
What do you know about the University Council?
I don't know a lot. Maybe it tackles some student affairs and ways the university manages its things, but yeah, I don't know much.
Do you know what the University Council is?
No.
I know that it exists, but that's it, basically.
Well, I've heard of it, but I'm not really knowledgeable about the specifics.
So, my first question in this section goes to Amian from Novum. We've just seen in the video that it's not common to find a student who actually knows much about the University Council. Some have heard of it, which is already a good step. How does your party want to increase the visibility of the work of the University Council and also the faculty councils in the next year?
Thank you for the question. So essentially, as you have noticed, students are not really exposed to student politics or to the council work. That means the first thing we did is expose the activity we have conducted in over the years. So for example, what Novum does is giving out updates about our counselors that are putting in the work. Or for example, hosting different kinds of events in which we invite stakeholders and students together to discuss certain issues relating to student politics. So it is really an increase of exposure for students from the parties individually, first of all, to the students through events, but then it is also the university who has to take a higher responsibility in making the election in itself as an event bigger and more visible to the students.
Okay. I would like to hear from you, Bas, actually, because your party is the oldest student party in Maastricht, the biggest ones in terms of seat and votes on the council currently. Is this a situation that you can be content with?
Well, first of all, I think the main problem is that most students don't really believe that what they say matters, because I hear a lot from people that say like, okay, I've noticed that this is not going in the right way, and I have announced that and I have told that to someone from the university, but apparently that is not the right address to tell that to them. So we, as the University Council, student parties, we should really take the lead in exposing the fact that students should be more heard than they are right now. And I think that as DOPE, we might be the biggest and we might represent the most students. But there's still a long way to go, and we are not hiding for that.
All right. Puk, I know you've been on the Faculty Council Law for the last year. How did you make sure that students have the right person to address, and how do you want to transpose that to the university level?
Yes, thank you, Peter. Actually, my party last year in the Faculty Council has implemented and initiated the principle of the General Student Assembly. This is an assembly where all students from the whole faculty could come together and talk on an accessible way on different problems that were there within the faculty and directly transpose that information to their representatives as such to us, List Lex. And therefore, we could directly implement that in the Faculty Council and really voice those opinions and put those opinions into plans and those ideas. So that's what we did last year. Furthermore, informative-wise, because there's a lot of misinformation or sort of non-information among students about the representing bodies. So we worked with the whole student council within the Faculty of Law by creating a video that really explained what all the student representing bodies were for and how you could access them as such. And for next year, our plan is to implement those GSA, General Students' Assemblies, through the whole university, so also on the university council level, and create a social media platform for the student representatives to directly stay into contact with the students, and so that students know who they can come to when they have a problem or an idea.
But I think that at your party, it's the problem that your party isn't represented at all faculties. And for example, we as DOPE, we represent all faculties but one. And I think our reach with that is much, much bigger than your party right now.
Can I react to that?
Yes. Of course.
Yes, List Lex, it's currently the name List Lex, and but we're still in cooperation with SHAPE. So we represent currently 3 faculties, FHML, FBN, and the law faculty within our list of students. But of course, you're with 10 students within a university council. And as soon as the elections have passed, really the lines and the parties, they don't matter anymore. You work together. You work together to really voice the voices of students all together within all faculties. So by creating those assemblies, it doesn't really matter which faculty you are from, as long as everyone from all faculties can come to those assemblies and reach that social media platform to really stay into contact with you. So it's a good point, but it's not really relevant for our party.
If I may,
I would like to bring in Demi from Khan and USM. What has your party done in the past, and what are you planning to do? Do you think that this model of general student assemblies is something that the university level should consider, or are there other proposals you want to make?
Yeah. Thank you. I think one of the strongest suit of our party is that we are really rooted in this community. So we are part of the Climate Action Network and also of the Sustainability Hub. That means that on a daily basis, our counselors and our candidates interact with students from various backgrounds, various organizations, and we really incorporate all those organizations into our decision making. So we, for example, consult, We Care, Unlimited, and all these student organizations representing a lot of different students. Next to this, I really agree with that we need to do more. And I would say that that could be a possibility to organize a general student assembly. But then my question is, who would be responsible for that? Is that the vice chair, which currently has the job of doing the student delegation, or would that be the entire student delegation? I'm very curious about how you would like to incorporate this.
Thank you for your question, Demi. If I can react to that, our plan as List Lex is to really incorporate that as the responsibility of the student delegation within the council. So really sit together with the 10 students, because the university council has 10 seats, to organize this as such and divide, the responsibilities, so that, as I just pointed out to Bas, everyone is included and also more students are represented, so that every party and their electorate really are heard.
One question again to Amien. You already mentioned that your party is relatively active in informing students also between elections throughout the whole year. But do you think that there's something that the university council as a whole should do, or that the university should do? Because it might even be that more people know Novum at this point than actually know what the university council is.
Exactly. And that comes down to the fact that Novum is a party that is active at 100% from the beginning to the end of the academic year. And the issue what we now have with the councils is that council work isn't always that easily accessible. So what we, for example, would like to introduce in our University Council manifesto is to actually increase the exposure of the University Council to the public. And you can do that, for example, by looking at the faculty councils. As I could mention, FPN, for example, has a social media page, or FHML has a social media page. So the University Council would need to, for example, open up more channels of communication and offer more opportunities of direct communication between students and their and the respective counselors in the in the university council. And aside from the university council, we as a party also made sure that council work is also through our channels published, and you can do so by council updates. But you also do so by creating videos which you explain how you can vote, which we have done years ago already.
Yeah. Maybe coming back to DOPE, how does your party stay in touch with your electorate, also apart from the elections themselves?
Well, first of all, we have to point out that barely 20% of the students voted last year. So I think that is the problem we have to face first. That much more students have to vote this year in order to have actually a good representation of the thoughts and the ideas of the students that they have right now. And as DOPE, we are really involved into the student life around Maastricht, which means that we hear complaints or compliments from all over the place. And
how do you incorporate those in your work?
Well, as soon as we hear someone say, for example, I believe that the mental well-being of the students right now is pretty dramatic, that is a notification for us to immediately turn that into a plan, as we will do and as we did actually over the last few years, and will do again this year.
May I ask a question?
Maybe Puk first.
Yes, thank you. Well, you said you told us how the students inform you as a party, of course, and Lex, I talked about that as well. But how do you inform the students of what's going on within your work? How do you inform the students of what progress you are making?
Well, the positive thing of University Council is that we are students as well. So we see each other around the university during lectures or tutorials and something like that. And that is, I think, the great opportunity to talk directly to the other students and to inform them about the progress we're making.
And the whole student, if I can follow up?
Yes, we're finished.
And the whole student body, because you said, rightly so, that 20% voted.
Yeah.
You got half of the votes within the university council at least, so let's say 1/10. 1/10 of the total amount of university students is about, 2,000. How do you inform the whole group, not just individually?
Because we really have an active social media platform as well, and on which we like to inform all the students. And I think social media for all of us is the most easy way to connect with your fellow students.
Okay, let's jump to actually our next voices that we collected on the university campus. We've heard many great proposals by the parties. This next student actually also mentions a level of participation at faculty level. Obviously, there's the different faculty councils. Right now, all the candidates present are running for the University Council, which kind of sits on top in a similar manner. And after that, we can, after the video, we can discuss briefly how to connect these different levels.
How engaged do you think students are in student politics in general?
In the program?
In the University Council?
In the university. Well, I think it's relative to each faculty, but definitely FASUS is definitely more probably politically engaged on a more intersectional level, I guess. And there's lots of different initiatives here, and because of the different programs that we're more encouraged to do so here as well. And yeah, there's many organizations here.
Yeah. However, I don't think that in our daily life at campus we really get in contact with these student political organization, and I think, yeah, it would be nice to be a bit more engaged, to also have more information and be more aware of what is going on in our faculty. I think that would be really important.
The question was, how are students engaged in student politics? So we missed that slightly, but after hearing the answer, Khan, or Davy, sorry, how would you integrate what they gave as an answer into this debate?
Yeah, so first of all, I think it's a lot about accessibility as well, because I actually had a conversation about this today with some of my friends, that they feel like it's quite difficult, already established. How can I actually become part of a party? How maybe it's a big commitment, maybe they don't want to run, but they just want to voice their opinions. So we think it might be nice to indeed do what Lex said, or have open sessions where people just, not in a formal manner, but just a creative session about mental health, for example. Express your opinions on a poster. Make it way more creative and accessible for students. I believe that's very important, and that can help to engage them more. on a very low accessible level.
And on the point of accessibility, because it has also been brought up throughout the year, and in our when we discussed this topic in our coverage in the MD, that it's still a different level of engagement between Dutch students and international students, English-speaking students. Obviously, we are having this debate in English. The website does contain a lot of information in English. I think most of the party's social media work is in fact in English. So actually to you, since you already mentioned your social media work, do you try to equally engage English-speaking students and Dutch-speaking students, or students who may prefer to be speaking Dutch?
We appeal to students, first and foremost, so we don't make separations. And the language we use at an international university is English, so that is the first language we will prioritize and use on our channels of communication. And coming to the point of accessibility in the councils, that's the same issue we then see is again that when councillors from different backgrounds get into the council, they have to face a lot of procedures and documents in Dutch, even though the university is international. So therefore Novum's interest and to get what we prioritize when we get into the council is to make sure that council work is first of all accessible to the councillors, and that the second point is that our communication channels are accessible to all students, and therefore the requirement is that the language is in English, obviously. But that doesn't, of course, mean that, of course, we have students that study Dutch programs, so they will obviously have maybe an easier time communicating in Dutch, but the environment they're still working in when they go to the library, when they get a coffee, the students that they meet, they're not all speaking Dutch. So the fact that they still use English as a language of command is still there, and that is why we would prioritize the main language for everybody.
Bas, maybe I know that DOPE is relatively well connected in the Dutch student scene, I would say. Do you think that the whole of student politics should be in English, or should we kind of double track with Dutch and English at the same time to make it more accessible to students?
The university has said that they want to pursue an international program, and I believe for the first time this year we've got more international students than Dutch students at the university. So that shows the way the university is pursuing, and I think we as student councils have to follow that. And I think it's real. I think it's real that we have to speak English. I mean that's obvious to me.
That's what. Yes, let's wrap up the first session.
Can I react to that?
With one session.
Yes, thank you. Well, I fully agree that English is the main language within the university, not just because more than half the student body and also the teacher body is international and speaks English as its main language, but the other half is still Dutch. And even though the main language should stay English and every document within councils should be both in English, also in Dutch, because it's not fair to expect from every single one Dutch student that they have sufficient command of English to know the difficult terms that are often communicated by the university. So therefore our list also created our election plan both in English and in Dutch to make it as accessible as possible to everyone and not exclude anyone.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our first section. We will now move on to the education and curriculum section, and actually not to stray too far from what you said, Puk. What if anybody here has a question on it, or we can always ask Dope about what do you think about Dutch language lessons in the curriculum, and if they should be mandatory or more accessible?
I don't believe that they should be mandatory. I mean, it's still everybody's choice to learn Dutch. I think it would make the integration easier. Although, I mean, if international students are coming to the Netherlands, and apparently the integration, I'm sorry to say, but it isn't going that great right now. I think there is a real border between Dutch-speaking students and international students. And we would like to see that going away. I mean, and I think that Dutch classes actually could provide a certain help with that in order to get a better integration.
Could I maybe respond to that? Yeah, I think I definitely agree that it's nice to have those Dutch classes. And one thing that Can USM actually pushed for, you have the social Dutch language course, which was only available and actually like could become part of the curriculum if students wanted to, so not mandatory for first-year students, but a lot of first-year students already had to deal with a lot of stress, work pressure. It now is becoming available as a pilot for second-year students, and I believe it might be very nice to increase the accessibility of language courses, make them accredited, and also more free language courses to increase the employability of students.
Yeah, that's why we as DOPE have as a point that we want to provide free language courses, not only for English-speaking students to learn Dutch, but also for Dutch students to learn English or other languages, for example, when they're going for a minor to a foreign country.
Yeah, amazing, we can work on that together then.
Actually, you mentioned, I'm going to follow up on that, you mentioned about workload and how it can be too much. I was wondering how the university should address, or the faculties should address, the student workload in the academic sphere.
Yeah, I think in the first place, information needs to be provided. There are a lot of options. There's the quick referral within the UM psychologist, you have the counselors, you have the peer supporters. But if I ask my friends or my peers about these options, most of them don't know what's available, and it feels like a barrier. So we should provide them with all the information so they can actually know what kind of options are there. And besides that, I believe that the curriculum should be built in a way that it actually fosters well-being. And when we talk about decisions in the university, on the university council level, but also on the faculty council level, we should actually think about how different policies, for example, might influence work pressure and well-being.
I can react to that. Very good point, Demi. I think non-information or insufficient information, I think it's just a general point in very, many areas that's, not enough communication between the university and its students. And they're actually working right now in an initiative. I talked to our current representative today in the University Council on an initiative to make the information about mental health help within the university more accessible. And what we want as List Lex is even take it broader to really see the problems and try to find solutions to them by creating a working group university-wide that examines the causes of high study pressure and works then consequently with the faculties to find solutions to this and implement it in all study programs to really find the root of the cause of all the study pressure that is a consequence also of the corona crisis.
Yeah, may I add to that shortly? Yes. So during the COVID crisis, in the beginning also last year, we have already raised our voices in the councils that we need more leniency regarding examination deadlines, especially the fact that sometimes the university gives themselves more leniency adhering to deadlines, but are very strict to students, even during COVID. So one approach we need to facilitate, and that can also be more efficiently done in the faculties, in the single faculty council in which all faculty councils were represented, is to increase the deadlines and make it more accessible for students to get with a good reasoning variation in which they can fulfill their assignments on time. And apart from that, that is also another reason we would raise the funding of student and especially newly established student organizations, such as the well-being movement and the student associations that are focusing on working towards well-being, as they will require more funds, especially right now during the crisis in which we are in, financially speaking, that they can afford to do more events and then get more people to get into the events and to kind of reliving the life they wanted or they originally wanted back before the corona crisis.
Actually, mentioning the corona crisis, and this is linked to workload, how will you as university councillors still address the ongoing issue of reacting to the study delays, or how the university should react to the study delays brought on by COVID? Boss, since you haven't spoken this round.
We believe that the COVID crisis, as you mentioned, has had huge damage on current curriculums. And as a matter of fact, I know that there is a financial compensation available for students that have suffered from a study delay due to COVID. The only thing is that we don't know about that, so we have to raise awareness about the utilities, about the financial compensations and other compensations that the university has to offer to our students.
We're coming back to this point of information, which obviously is very important.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's something you as student councillors should do? Should you go around?
Well, we have a certain
tell
responsibility
your
for that,
or
of course.
should the university do that, or who's?
No, we as
mainly
university council have a certain responsibility, and we have to raise awareness about that, and we have to raise awareness not only at the student side, but also, and I think mainly at the side of the university itself, because they are the ones that provide these compensations.
Can I respond to this?
Yes.
Yeah, you mentioned the study finance, and actually that's something that one of our council members just asked in the university council, because there is indeed study finance available for students, for example, who suffer from injuries and illness. But then when it comes to mental health and not having an official diagnosis, or when it comes to dealing with the issues of sexual harassment, which there was a report published by Amnesty and also by is a great problem, they actually are not eligible for these options of study finance. And I believe that's something we really need to work on, because it should be accessible for more and more students if we really want to help them. Plus, even if they have an official diagnosis and they want to, for example, with the binding study advice, get exempted for that, they need to stand in front of this committee, which is very scary if you, for example, already suffer from anxiety. So I think there's lots that we need to improve on these matters.
So following up on that, actually, how do you think this should be implemented then, instead of standing in front of the committees and such?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with binding study advice, you mean?
Both how the university deals with either disabilities or illness or other issues such as sexual assault. What mechanism should be in place? How should students? How do you imagine students should then go forward and come forward with these issues?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about this. One of the important issues is that I believe it would be very beneficial if already staff is trained for this, so they are trained to deal with sexual harassment, mental health, physical disabilities, so they know how to help these students, next to, of course, the options that we already have. And in this way, if they are actually trained next to, the general training, which also needs to be improved, but also trained specifically for mental health and sexual harassment issues, they know how to help these students better. And that's already a first step, next to promoting all these services that are already available.
We'd like to add a small point.
Quick point. Yeah.
Yes. To that, we also need to make sure that in the single faculties, when the faculty counselors bring that point up, that it is also implemented in the curriculum and in the rules of procedures of the study programs. So that means that when a student has issues following a study program due to the mentioned factors we have just discussed, that they indeed by law also receive a compensation and have an easier time accessing the study materials and to complete their assignments.
You've just brought up the study programs and kind of the rules of regulations applicable there. These are, of course, things that are regulated at faculty level rather than university level. So I would like to ask Perk again, how as a current still faculty councillor, how did you experience that at the faculty level? Is that something you could take influence on as a faculty councillor? And do you think you can again take that with you to the university council? Is that something the university council can address, or how would you bring that into the faculties?
The support system or the information, the communications?
We
talked about both.
The support system for students, this leniency we've been talking about, the assistance to students with
Yeah.
disabilities? Or
What's really nice about the faculty council is that you're closer to students, so you really know the problems in a certain faculty and you can really react to that. But what's better about the university council is if you really do come up with a plan and a system, then you can obligate, sort of, to say it in harsh terms, faculties or to cooperate with faculties to implement it everywhere. So not that just one faculty benefits from a certain improved system, but that all faculties can really come with that. And I think concerning information, because that's a big issue, as we said before, in every area what we talk about. I think what I felt like the past year in the Faculty Council of Law is that the university often assumes or feels that it's the students' responsibility to go and search for information because it's somewhere on a website and they can search for it themselves because they're university students and they're smart. I think the university should take a far greater responsibility of actively approaching students with information and with services and bringing direct email addresses and phone numbers of counselors and support people within the university and not lay that responsibility just with the students.
And how can you as a counsellor push for this change?
I think first of all, inter-party cooperation. I think you stand strongest if you stand together. Certainly, because you're all students, and in the end, we're all representing the same kind of person. And I think if we push together for a plan, a sort of a working group or a university-wide plan to implement the content of it, so communication, then you can transpose that to every faculty and sort of implement it everywhere at the same time. But only if you stand together and really make your voices heard within the university council, only then it is possible.
Yeah, because you began about the direct approach of students, and that is why we as DOPE want a basic skill level for tutors, not only for the level or the level of quality of education, but also so they can spot and recognize when students actually suffer from mental fatigue or issues that can be problematic for their study results. And as a tutor, you see your students, I think, at least 2 times or 3 times a week. So you're really connected to your students. And we know we cannot expect from tutors that they are going to solve all their problems, but they are the first ones to recognize those problems at their students, so they can approach their students and say, listen, is there something wrong? And if there is, you should go, or you could go to this person or to that person.
And on, I think that kind of, we have to wrap up our education section. It is riveting, but looking on problems on how the university can deal with student problems specifically, we'll now move on to housing. On that note, we have...
Yes, we do have one short clip, again, from the campus.
What do you think that the university could do, if anything, to support better housing facility for students coming to Maastricht, particularly non-EU or international students?
Yeah, something needs to be done for sure. I don't know, maybe pair up with some agencies, because there's quite a few around, but I feel like a lot of people, especially if they don't know anyone living here, they might not know which one to trust better. So yeah, stuff like that. And maybe also, I don't know, opening up a portal or something where students from the university can contact other students that might already live here and, you know, might have some space.
We've heard a student propose that the university could, for example, cooperate with more partners in the city. Throughout the last year, we've seen the housing crisis quite dramatically increase. Maybe, Demi, if you want to say a word about how your party has been addressing the issue of student accommodation in Maastricht, and how you see that going forward into the next year.
Yes, thank you. What our party did is come up with SOS Maastricht. You might have heard of it. We lobbied for short, mid and long-term changes when it comes to the housing crisis. So we helped 100 students with couch surfing, and we also helped 30 students with permanent solutions. Then when it comes to mid-term solutions, we looked at the hospital policy, for example, so that actually people can rent or sub-rent their room to students without having a permit. It is not a definite solution, but again, it's a mid-term solution. One of the things we lobbied for as well is the 600 units that are built in Randwijk right now. But long-term, the university really needs to look at its growth strategy. And what is very important, that students are represented on a municipality level to make sure that we actually have this lobbying agency. Well, the university thought we were really successful, so they actually took over our platform. And what we believe is that the housing help desk, currently run by only 2 students, needs to expand and provide students with information regarding housing, but also regarding issues they might face when it comes to discrimination, for example.
So in the run-up to this debate, actually, it was Eamon who told me Novum has the solution to the housing crisis. So if you want to elaborate.
Well, we were, since the past 2 years, working on an actual long-term and definitive solution to the housing crisis. And the first foremost thing we noticed is that the university cannot, obviously not solve it alone. It is also the city council that has a big say to that. And when we went further into the communication, we noticed that there is actually barely any communication between the university and the city council concerning the fact that the university needs to make an actual demand and need to communicate that, seeing from the data, they might run out of student housing, and this would then lead to having less students enrolled into the university. So what we started to do, what unfortunately the university has more or less failed to do, is we networked further with parties and tried to cooperate with the city council. And on top of that, we managed, for example, to actually move our party inside the city council to submit a directive letter to the municipality concerning housing discrimination, in which we brought this issue further up.
Thanks. So now both of you also mentioned discrimination. I'm sure it's a topic that many of us have experienced. Is there something that Lex also wants to address in the upcoming year in the council?
Yes, certainly. There's a lot of housing discrimination. You only have to look at Facebook pages where it's only guys, only girls, only Dutch people, internationals. It's mainly that it's just Dutch or everyone. So mainly the internationals are discriminated against. So we as LixLex really want the university to completely prohibit it in any way they can, because they don't have a complete influence of this.
Exactly. What can the university do against Facebook groups?
So not against Facebook groups, but you can, of course, as a university, say they have a lot of housing platforms, because they provide housing to the university indirectly, to really use their influence to prohibit any kind of discrimination, not only international, national, but also gender discrimination or study discrimination, but also go into talks with the municipality to see what they can do in general to form some kind of policy on this, because you're already coming to a new country as an international, and then it's hard to find housing because of the housing crisis, and then you find a house but you can't enter because you're an international. So really try to broaden the perspective outside of the university citywide.
Yeah. Again, coming to you, Bas, DOP has been around for some 20 years now in Maastricht. Is that how's your party cooperating, networking on city level to?
Yeah, I think you all really underestimate the problem, because this isn't something that we're going to solve on a local scale. And we as DOPE, we believe that we have to look further than that and even go as far as national scale, to go into the national politics. Because the problem in Maastricht isn't the lack of housing, it is that it's 2/3 of the housing is in private hands. And the city council doesn't have anything to say about private housing. So it is all about the rules, the law that is made up by the national politics.
How can DOPE then influence that?
Because we have the connections, the direct connections to ISO, which is the National Institute of Student Parties as a whole, and they have direct influence on the national politics. And I think that is the way to get into actually a change for the housing market.
But have you actually utilized that connection? Because, for example, what we did is basically moving the city council to bring housing further up as an actual issue. Now, of course, yes, housing is a national issue, that is correct. However, the city council can still decide on making up more space and offering space for the university to acquire land and then to build more housing spaces, which would already alleviate the issue.
Yeah, so it's a great step that you took, but it's not the. I'm afraid it's not the end. I mean,
But then
we have to look further.
Then what did DOPE do on a national level?
Currently, we're speaking with ISO to actually improve the situation for students in the Netherlands as a whole, because we have to face the fact that we are not going to solve this alone as Maastricht or as Limburg. We have to face a much bigger problem right now.
I would like to bring in Demi again from KAN USM. We've talked about how housing is actually quite a complex, multi-layered issue. So what you've been sharing is that you have been working on a very local level. How did that connect to this national level, and was that something that you see necessary, or?
Yeah, a couple of points. First of all, I think we all agree that student housing is important, and I hope we can work on that next year. But I feel like this is something was addressed last year as well, and not a lot of parties actually changed a lot in this aspect, I have to say, unfortunately. And maybe there's a lot that needs to be done. It's not perfect what we have right now, but SOS Maastricht was already a great first step, I believe, with helping actually more than 100 students. Then coming back to what you said, actually on a municipality level, with the hospital policy, you can rent houses even if it's private.
And
so
not
this
enough. It's not going to solve the problem, I'm afraid.
That's why this is a midterm solution, and we also want to look at long term, and that's what the university has to look at. It's growth, its whole growth strategy, but also when it comes to thinking about student representation at Maastricht the municipality level, because we have the Maastricht Student Union, but actually we had to step in for them during the housing crisis last year, which is not our job. It's the job of the Maastricht Student Union. If I can react to that?
Yes, I wanted to ask also on that point. As councillor next year, how would you? Is there something that you would push for that how the university can support, maybe in a short-term relief for students incoming? They don't have accommodation. Is there something that you see or you would like the university to see? To support these students.
Thank you. Very, very direct short-term solutions that can come up within a month so that everyone has at least a house to live. Looking at other universities, I think is a great step. And the University of Twente, for example, I mean, it's definitely not perfect, and it's awful that it even is needed, but they build sort of housing for students who didn't have a house at that moment in sort of great container blocks, like very, very quickly they could. Sorry?
That's happening now at Rent Week. We lobbied for it, 600.
Yeah, exactly. So they're building, indeed, in cooperation with the municipality, university is now building 600 more necessary houses. So that's a short-term solution. When looking longer, I think the university needs to change its mentality, because nationally there is a housing crisis, and that also corresponds to the student housing crisis. So I think it's very indirect to try to change the national polity from a very local student level, even though I applaud the initiative. I think the university, when recruiting students, should really be aware of the fact that they have a responsibility to provide them with housing. If they can't provide them with housing, they should be honest and clear about that. And also, if they don't, then they just need to come up with a solution too. And if they can't come up with a solution, then they shouldn't recruit that many students, because they have an obligation to students when they recruit them that they have sufficient facilities.
Yeah, let's go down on this aspect, because that was something that I think Eamon also initially mentioned. Manage the number of incoming students every year. How would you implement that?
Of course, that depends, first of all, on how universities receive funding, because essentially the issue we have is the university needs to increase the annual rate of students enrolling to the university to continuously receiving funds from the national government. So the idea should be to, of course, as you said, informing students about the housing crisis, so they first of all, decide whether they want to even enroll into the university, which might lead to a slight reduction in enrollments. However, we should focus also on finding unique alternatives to promote more housing opportunities. And as the Khan representative mentioned, for example, that they implement containers for students. An alternative that might be better would be the implementation of micro homes, as stated by one of our FSE candidates, in which we put more research towards making smaller time.
And who should do these things? Is this really something the university should
The
set up an office for?
The university has, of course, a lot more funds available to coordinate such programs. So what they would need to do on the university council level is making a decision on initiating a program that would provide housing spaces in that format, and then allocating funds to that program and then building it up. So essentially having their own housing program when it comes to offering more space. And we know that, for example, English or American universities, when they have an issue concerning housing, they raise it also in the local politics. And we need Maastricht University to raise their interests in local politics.
Okay, let's hear also to slowly wrap up our last section. Let's hear from Demi again. Since you already mentioned the university took over the initiative started by Khan and USM. Is that something? Would you also push for that to be extended, built upon, or how would you also set up an entirely new office for that?
Yeah, so they indeed took it over, but we think it should be implemented in the housing help desk, because now it's very limited, and the university has a certain responsibility, I believe, although officially not, but it's in good faith if they do help the housing crisis to decrease. So, for example, when it comes to providing information to students, we can consider long-term solutions such as building a campus, but of course funds is also a problem when it comes to these things. In the end, it comes down to the municipality, and I have to agree with Novum there that the municipality has a responsibility, but we also need student representatives at the municipality level, because when we worked on this whole housing crisis, and when we talked in university council, okay, can't you as a university council raise this to the city council? They told us that when it comes to these student matters, we have a student union for this. So they actually deferred us to other people, which is a problem and needs to be addressed in this sense, because we either need a student union that is functioning, or the university needs to start up.
I think, we really need to wrap up our last section. I think we've, in a way, come back to this question of how are students represented, where are they represented, and with which competences. So I think we have a question on that.
Yes, we do. It's from our last editor, Michael Keith. The question goes as follows. The voting numbers in years gone past have been appalling by any standard. How do you plan on improving those numbers, and do you believe those goals are realistic? Who would like to volunteer?
Yes, thank you for that question. So indeed, voter turnout is extremely low at UM, and the point we have realized is that essentially we need to be more active, both on site and online. So what Novum did is to do a number of various events. These can be social events or also educational events, in which we basically first just introduce ourselves, introduce the world of student politics, or just the councils, to the normal students who are more or less, of course, only focused on their studies, on having fun, on partying, and we bring that different side to them. On the other hand, we need to do and host events like the one we now do with debates. Having one university council debate is good. Having faculty debates would be better, as FPN, for example, has done so last year.
If I can also react to your question, I think that one of the main things about the elections is students only hear from the elections when parties promote themselves to vote for them. So I think a priority should be to get students to vote in general, to use their votes both on faculty level and university level, even though you might not get that vote as a party. Yes, so I think that is very important, and also from the university to just really increase their promotion in general, because now the promotion is only done by parties. And I think also to keep really the standard of the elections high, because I think that's a lot of students that do hear from the elections, that do hear from the parties, are so annoyed by all the spamming and private messages that they just refuse to vote in principle. And really, we really do that ourselves as parties. So we should really combine our efforts to prevent that from happening.
Actually, on that note, I guess that comes from a concentration of the parties only really being visible towards the end of the year. One question from another person on YouTube is directed towards DOPE by Robin Paulissen. I have noticed a certain absence on social media platforms. If I'm not aware of what happens with our voted DOPE councillors, how can we solve this?
Well, apparently she's not happy about our social media policy, and I think in a certain way she is right. I think it is way too concentrated, our social media activity towards the elections, and as long as we try to promote ourselves and promote our progression during the whole year, I think there's still a long way to go, and I think we better start with that yesterday than today, actually. So, and even though we have been the biggest party over the last few years, we're still learning, and this is an example of that. I mean, we're still going to improve ourselves over the coming years.
Yeah, can I ask something?
Yeah, sure.
So why do you only update your voters during election season?
Well, I've just joined DOPE this year, so and as soon as I joined DOPE, I was actually active with that, and that is actually a matter of just collecting the right people that are really willing to promote and be active as a student councillor.
Okay, but this is something you want to change in
Yeah,
the
sure,
future.
yeah.
Because I do think it's very important to be transparent and actually
because that's the
provide
problem that we're
updates.
facing right now, because that is why most students don't feel heard or actually feel like they are neglected in some way.
There's actually a very similar question on that point. Also, I think all of the parties can say something about that. That is from Critic Rock. Have you previously conducted initiatives to inform the student body of your work while being on the council? I think we've heard from some parties, but let's hear from.
Can I respond to that? Yeah. Yes, of course, because I'm now in the Faculty Council of Law, I can really say something for my party. As we said before, of course, our social media presence, but even more importantly, those general students' assemblies are not only for students to inform us, but us also to inform them about what we are doing at that moment, what they are thinking of that, what their opinion is about that. And also in cooperation by making that video and really informing them about the bodies in general, not only about the Faculty Council, University Council, but also Library Committee, the program committees. There are so many things where students are represented and they have no idea.
Can I pass that on to Amy? And Puk just mentioned this way of two ways communication. So you've mentioned how you inform students. Do you also take input through any channels?
Yes, definitely. For example, we, as I mentioned, we had pillar events. So essentially one event for each pillar. And what we had there is students were attending these events, were asking questions, and were basically giving feedback to what our counselors should move on to. So we basically use any event or any occasion where we meet students as a way for first asking them if they have something new on the table for us to work with, and then we share what we have so far done in the council.
Lastly, Demi, if you want to answer the same question.
Yeah, I think it's very similar. We did semester updates, so we really informed our voters about what we did in the various councils, and we also hosted a couple of events. So we did, for example, a workshop about mental health and sustainability. It was a very fun brainstorm where people could just talk with different students about ideas which we then could implement in the councils.
I would like to give one other question into the round, because often, of course, if you post on social media, if you talk at events, you will meet the people that are already following you on Instagram or are already coming to your event. So that's already a first step into student politics. Is there anything you've been doing to engage kind of the students that had never any connection with student politics? As I think we've seen, especially in the first few voices we've heard in the video, many people were really not quite aware of what the university council is, what student politics is. So how do you reach those people? Maybe going around.
How we reach those people. I think if direct social media connection isn't working, what we also do is, of course, you can promote a post, you can promote the information you want students to receive, and therefore students who don't even follow you see that. Of course, that's not always wanted by students. So what we also do in the faculty is when we hold a general student assembly, if we want to inform students about something, if we want to really distribute that video widely, we make sure that the university helps us with that. So we put up posters, we distribute it through student messages, etc., so that not students who are directly connected to your party, but the student body in general is reached by that.
Okay.
Yes. So as I mentioned, we used educational events to inform students. However, reaching the students that never heard about the elections one efficient way to do so is by hosting social events. So basically just events which are focused on having people socialize, having fun. And through that process, they would obviously see that these events are hosted, for example, by the student party Novum. So that is the first step of exposure. And then as they attend more events, they will ask more questions about it. But another point is also that what we decided to emphasize on this year is to merge with the students, merging with student organizations and collaborating on more events or other occasions. And one example would be having hosted a workshop by Eloquentia together with Novum members.
Okay. So yeah, I would like to hear from Bas actually, since we have the question.
Yeah. First of all, the social events of Novum, I don't know how you reach other students than the ones that are following you. But besides that, as Puk actually mentioned, we have to ask the university for help in this, because they are the only one that have actually the reach to all the students, and it doesn't matter in a certain way, because of course we want the students to vote on DOPE, but the most important thing is they go vote, because that is actually the most important thing right now.
Demi?
Yes, I will actually agree with both Amin and Bas. From the one hand, next to actually doing semester updates and more member-related events, we organized the Sustainability Week together with the Green Office, where tens of different, actually Novum was there as well, study associations and organizations were there who participated and got to know us, which helped a lot. And we tried to do more of these social events in collaboration with other student organizations. We actually did a movie night recently. We watched Wall-E. It was really cute. Around 50 people came, and we talked a little bit about our party and the elections coming up, and that most important is in the end that you actually vote. But I have to agree with Bas. In the end, even though we reach maybe more people than initially, we still reach a certain group of people who are maybe already a little bit interested in us. So we need the help for the university when it comes to communication and transparency. And one thing that our party also lobbied for is actually the newsletter, the update, to get an update about what the University Council has been doing. It's a first step, and it needs to be implemented next year as well. We want to monitor this, and we believe we need to also have social media when it comes to University and Faculty Council updates, and do way more, but actually get the support from university in order to do so.
It should become way more interactive, because right now it's just a blank sheet of paper or just online, and it doesn't look really appealing to most students, I think.
Puk, you had something to add?
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Amin, and just in general also to your question again about accessing, reaching students that are not involved really yet in general. Don't you think it's better, as Novum, to organize events where your name isn't necessarily associated with the events, because then people who are not necessarily your electorate will show up too and get involved into politics and maybe become part of your party or your electorate. What we do as Listlex, those GSAs are not related to our name, to our party, so that every student feels welcome to come, and not only students who feel free to vote for us.
Well, we had, for example, our corporate event together with the Vote Party, in which we were kind of laying back our name and proposing just the topic of the event, which was informing students about their right as international students to vote in the city council. So this is one way we model, or where we advertise the events. Another point is that whenever we have joint events, associations also partner up with us. That does not mean that we are the only ones hosting the event. It just means that we have supported it. But essentially, the idea is that people, so members from Novum, non-members who have no affiliation to the parties, and then the members of the student associations, which are the students and the people that vote, that they join these events and get exposure to student politics. And we usually also have always emphasized, when we campaign for elections in general, that the most important thing is students should vote. It doesn't, at the end of the day, for the students, it's important that they vote, and they vote who they would like to vote for and what they would like to stand for in the councils. And that is #1 priority. #2 is then to go into detail and see who actually deserves that vote.
Just to follow up actually on something you mentioned, but you also talked about this earlier, and that's the General Student Assembly.
Yeah.
Right? How do you view, I think I already asked something similar earlier, but how do you view student councillors and yourself building this and making it more, integrating it more into the university structure?
How we would see that as a list on the university-wide level?
Yes.
Yes. I think, first of all, every student is part of a faculty, right? I think the easiest thing is to communicate directly with your faculty. So really encourage every faculty to implement a general student assembly, and not only organized by those counselors, but just, you know, the faculty taking its responsibility into reaching students. But also on the university level, because some issues are faculty related, but there are also main issues like housing. If you bring that up during a general student assembly of a faculty, you can't do anything with it, but you can on a university level. So really organize large assemblies where students can come and really on an accessible way put in their word. It doesn't really matter how many students come, as long as you really offer a platform where students feel safe and free to put in their word.
If I shortly may reply to that, we actually have stated in our University Council manifesto that we would like to formal formation of a student assembly. And the idea for that would be that the student assembly would basically have one permanent representative, which would then propose the interests of the students directly into the University Council to basically establish that direct line of communication, so student needs on policies in which more student feedback would be required. So we would support the early initiatives of LEX in that sense, and would like to further diversify it and work on it after the election.
If I can respond to that, don't you think it's better, even though I applaud your idea and your initiative, don't you think it's better for 10 students within a university council to really put their shoulders behind the initiative and carry the general student assembly until the university takes the initiative over, than just having one person who represents those interests? Because in the end, all 10 councillors represent the interests of students and have an interest in playing a part in the general student assembly.
That is correct, but we can also believe that when students look at the elections, they see the different parties and they see the different name. So the assumption could come up that student parties have, of course, certain differences when it comes to prioritizing certain policies. So having a neutral member into the council, which comes from a student assembly in which there is no party alignment whatsoever, where there are just students from all faculties giving out their opinions, could make the group a bit more dynamic and could maybe shed a new light on the issues we're working on.
Okay, so we're almost out of time for our debate, but there's one question relating to a topic that we haven't addressed in this debate tonight. We did so last year, and of course it is an ongoing issue, which is the sustainability of the university. So in the interest of time, I would just like to give the question to each candidate for their top one policy change in the university to make the university more sustainable. Maybe should we start with Puk?
Yes, thank you. Well, our top one priority that is really realistic, because that's important, we think it's important to have realistic plans, is changing test vision. I will explain how that relates to sustainability. Test vision, when you have an open book exam, you have to print sometimes hundreds of pages to take with you to the Mac. right? So if you implement in TestVision a program where you can have access to online documents during open book exams, you won't need to print as much, those thousands and thousands of documents, which also results in a printing problems. We're already working on that actually as a party, but only on a faculty level, and we want to take this university-wide, and it's already successful.
Okay, thank you. Amy?
Yes, when it also comes to policies that can actually be achieved, the number one priority we would have across the faculties and the university council would be to implement rules or procedures in which reusable items are prioritized. That means instead of having multiple coffee cups, students come with their own reusable cup, or for example, reusing their own water bottles when they have more water stations placed across the UN facilities. So to again we prevent the waste created when they buy new bottles.
Okay, thanks. So Bas, the top.
Yeah, I have to completely agree with Puck, because last Monday I had an exam and it was on the computer, and I got pieces of paper to get
is
the
DOPE
literature.
also working on
So
this
DOPE
initiative?
is really looking into a critical look on sustainability. For example, automatic sensors in education rooms.
What's your top one? What's the one?
If I have to summarize it in one sentence, I would say have a critical look at the use of energy.
Amy?
Yeah, we are, of course, a bit a sustainability party in that sense. And we published a report today on our website about what's wrong with the governance and accountability of the SUM 2030. That's a task force for sustainability. Because we see a lot of issues there, and we want to keep monitoring them. Because in the end, of course, I believe with you, these small changes can already help a lot, and we need to be realistic, but there are ambitious goals. And if we don't hold them accountable for the things they have promised, which is our job as a student representative, then we don't achieve the goals that we have for 2030.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the candidates for this debate. I want to thank everyone at home or wherever you are for watching and participating in the chat. We are very happy that the Maastricht Diplomat that we're able to bring this debate or make it happen. And we want to remind everyone that last year only 19.5 or barely 19.5% of students actually voted, and this coming week, on the 16th, at 8 o'clock, polls will open, and they will close at 6 o'clock on the 18th. 19th.
Thursday.
Sorry. That was an issue. Sorry. Thank you. So, to close off the debate, Peter and I say thank you at home and to you, and we would like to give each of you 60 seconds to give your last remark. Please, Lex.
Thank you. Well, you might have noticed as a viewer that our priorities are the same, or at least our goals are, just the way of how we want to reach those goals are different. So how can you really know what party to vote for? It's about, as a party, making yourself believable, that you actually put your words and your plans into action. Well, as Liz Lex, last year we have initiated and actually made successful the General Student Assemblies. We are now organizing a faculty-wide gala, which we also want to bring those social events university-wide. We have started the Sustainable Examination Initiative concerning TestVision and access to online documents. And we are improving the PBL system within our faculty, which we also want to bring university-wide. So as you see, we actually put our words into action. So we are there for quality representation, student well-being, room for extracurricular activities, and a way out of this housing crisis next to a great community feeling. So if you are done with words and ready for action, vote Liz Lex.
Thank you for this very well-timed conclusion. Eamon.
Thank you. As we said before, Novum has been consistently active throughout the entire year. We have networked into the City Council to make clear proposals and clear incentives for the people at power to make changes and to create more connection between university and the City Council. We have started and worked on multiple projects, such as, for example, the project started by Bloody Serious to promote free period products in all faculties. Our counselors have consistently worked on supporting these initiatives inside the councils. We have ensured that the QR code for reporting harassment or for reporting other things of incidents and sexual harassment to be actually accepted into the faculty of FASOS and to be implemented. And among numerous other issues, we have encouraged the counselors to work on them and to initially come to...
Thank you, Novum. Sorry, that's your time. Bas, please take it away.
Yeah, well, as DOPE, as you know, we have been the largest party over the last few years. We've got the most experience and we've got the most connections as well in between faculties in the university itself as nationwide. So in order to have to actually gain a huge advantage, you should vote for DOPE, because we are going to connect the university again and also work together with all the other parties and the faculties. We're going to connect the students again, and we are going to prioritize the voice of the students at the university. So vote DOPE next week.
Thank you, Bas. Demi, for Khan USM.
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for hosting this debate. I think it's a great first step when it comes to communicating to students about the elections. And I have to agree with Pak. In the end, it's about who is accountable for what they promise. And if you listen to last year's debate, most parties have promised the same thing, so similar issues. And although I see that some parties have done things on the faculty level, and we've also done that, sustainability platforms, designing courses, we are also organizing a gala at FSE. I believe that we are the party that actually did things on the university level as well. 56-hour rule, the sustainability week, SOS Maastricht, writing reports about sustainability, changing things when it comes to the language policy. All these things is what we did because we get things done together, and that's why you should vote again.
Thank you to all the candidates. Thank you again at home, and vote.
Right. Yes, vote. That's it. Thank you.